Here are the top stories for today, October 25, 2019. Malacañang directs all government agencies to take further steps to stop the spread of African swine fever. The palace hails President Duterte's meeting with Chinese Vice Premier Hu Chunhua as signifying the country's growing friendship with China. Leaders of the Higaonon tribe pledge anew to condemn the CPP-NPA NDF and the communist movement. And the image of Our Lady of Lourdes in Quezon City is set to be canonically crowned by order of the Pope next year. Good day, I'm Bench Bondok. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. We start at the nation's top office. Malacañang directed all government agencies, bureaus, and offices to take measures to control the spread of African swine fever in the country. This came following reports that samples taken from hot dog, longanisa, and tocino imported by a Manila-based company tested positive for ASF virus. According to the Bureau of Animal Industry, the imported meat products which tested positive for ASF were taken from a supply coming from a company based in Santa Mesa, Manila. In a statement Thursday, presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo said the Office of the President is directing all executive departments, bureaus, agencies, government-owned and controlled corporations, government financial institutions, and other instrumentalities of the government to manage, contain, and control the transmission of ASF in the country. Meanwhile, Senator Francis Pangilinan urged the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Trade and Industry to identify the brands of processed meat products allegedly tested positive for ASF and immediately remove them from the market. Pangilinan said authorities must implement stricter checks on imported meat products, noting that the incident of ASF-infected products slipping past the country's borders should serve as a lesson. In other news, Malacañang on Thursday disputed the claim of Vice President Leni Robredo that the campaign against illegal drugs has failed because it allegedly targeted the poor rather than big drug networks. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo says the fact that the drug cartels still exist does not mean that the war on drugs has failed, as the extent of the illegal drug problem is monstrously enormous. Contrary to Robredo's claim, Panelo said the drug war has been successful in convincing more than 1 million drug personalities to voluntarily surrender since it started in 2016. Panelo said under the drug war, close to 500,000 underwent recovery, rehabilitation, and wellness programs, more than 42,000 barangays have been cleared of drugs, and more than 35 billion pesos worth of drug chemicals and laboratory equipment have been seized and dismantled. He adds more than 100 police calawags and less than 5,000 drug lords and pushers involved in illegal drugs who have resisted arrest in buy-bust operations have been killed. Panelo denied that the palace is intolerant of criticisms, saying it welcomes constructive criticism, but it should be based on facts and the law. The recent Social Weather Station survey found that the number of families in the country who have felt hunger in the past few months have gone down. According to SWS, the number of Filipino families who experienced involuntary hunger from July to September fell to 9.1% or an estimated 2.3 million. The report also shows that the hunger incidence in the past 3 months was down by 0.8 percentage point from the 10% or about 2.5 million Filipino families registered in June. Of the 9.1% or estimated 2.3 million Filipino families, about 7.4% or about 1.8 million experienced moderate hunger, while the remaining 1.7% or about 426,000 families had to endure severe hunger. The pollster noted that the latest hunger rate is the lowest in over 15 years. PCOO Secretary Martin Andanal said the poll results only proved that the efforts of President Duterte's administration to eradicate hunger in the country are working. Andanal assured the public that the government would continue implementing programs aimed at addressing both poverty and hunger. The Armed Forces of the Philippines on Thursday destroyed loose firearms and magazines at the General Headquarters Supply Unit in Camp Aguinaldo, Quezon City. A total of 1,561 assorted guns along with 55,730 magazine assemblies were destroyed. These firearms were either captured, confiscated, surrendered, and recovered through legitimate military operations and community engagements from 2016 up to the present. The ceremonial demilitarization was part of the 12th founding anniversary of the AFP Munitions Control Center. The AFP has an ongoing campaign to recover loose firearms as part of efforts to prevent and counter violent extremism in the country. Last year, a total of 4,782 assorted unlicensed firearms were confiscated with the help of the local government executives, prominent political families, and religious leaders in Mindanao. A total of 66 distressed overseas Filipino workers from Kuwait have been repatriated and arrived in the country. And the DOTR distributes malasakit help kits for travelers this Undas holiday. More on these from Janice Cave.
The Department of Foreign Affairs on Wednesday said a total of 66 distressed OFWs from Kuwait have been repatriated and arrived in the country. The group forms the 8th batch of OFWs assisted by the Philippine Embassy in Kuwait. DFA Undersecretary Sara Lu Ariola urged Filipinos in Kuwait to take advantage of the help offered by the Duterte administration and come home. In other news, a suspected courier for a human trafficking syndicate was apprehended by Bureau of Immigration at the Clark International Airport in Angeles City, Pampanga. The passenger, who is a Filipino-Taiwanese woman, was about to board a flight to Taipei, was intercepted after airport security officers discovered that she had 22 Philippine passports in her possession. The suspect admitted that the passports belonged to people who were recruited by her bosses to work in Malta without appropriate permits and proper documents. Meanwhile, the Department of Transportation on Thursday announced the distribution of malasakit help kits through malasakit help desks for the Undas holidays. DOTR Assistant Secretary for Communications Goddess Hope Libiran said these kits will be available to all commuters and will be distributed starting October 31. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Janice Cave.
Still to come, the palace hails President Duterte's meeting with Chinese Vice Premier Hu Chunhua as signifying the country's growing friendship with China. A mayor accused as a narco-politician is shot dead hours after he was arrested for assaulting a masseur in Cebu. These stories are next. Stay with the PNA Newsroom.
Siargao is the call of my growing years. We must cherish this natural gift from the ocean and preserve the splendor of its wildness for the generations after us.
Now red is taking off behind.
Surfing as a sport is like the art of diplomacy in a metaphorical way. One has to be strong enough to stand on a board, cruise over the raging heights of the waves. May the Siargao International Surfing Cup flourish, and may it also serve as an avenue for the convergence of cultures. Thank you. Mabuhay ang Siargao, mabuhay ang Surigao del Norte, Marajaw na dayom sa ato tanan.
This is Secretary Martin Andanon, and you're watching
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. President Duterte's meeting with Chinese Vice Premier Hu Chunhua is said to signify the growing friendship between the Philippines and China. In a press statement, the palace said Duterte and Hu talked about the implementation of key infrastructure projects in the Philippines that are being financed by China. The meeting came despite Duterte's recent admission that he was experiencing unbearable pain in his lower back following his recent fall from his big bike. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo on Thursday said that despite being told by his doctor to rest for several days, President Duterte had decided to meet with Hu to discuss developments on his administration's ambitious Build infrastructure program. The president assured Hu of the government's firm commitment to further boost Manila's improved ties with Beijing and noted that his 2 consecutive visits to China in April and in August this year validate his resolve to maintain the good relations between the 2 countries. A look at our business headlines. Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez III on Wednesday said the cash assistance for farmers to address the impact of the rice tariffication law will cover only the most affected ones. In a press briefing after the meeting of the Economic Development Cluster in Manila, Dominguez said officials of the Department of Agriculture did not bring up the issue of rice tariffication but discussed the issue of the cash transfer for affected sectors. Dominguez said he has received reports that not all areas in the country experienced a drop in the farm gate price of rice, so it has been raised that the cash aid will be given only to the most affected farmers. He adds that they are also checking on where to source the budget for the cash assistance and that authorities are also considering to give rice to beneficiaries of the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program as part of the subsidy. Staying with business, Subic Bay Marine Exploratorium Incorporated, the parent company of Ocean Adventure, has filed a case of illegal termination of its lease contract against the Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority. In September, SBMA issued a notice of termination and repossession to SBMEI, operator of Ocean Adventure, Camayan Beach Resort, and Adventure Beach Water Park. The SBMA insisted that SBMEI has failed to comply with its development commitments with unpaid billings of about 6 million pesos and other breaches in their contract. The SBMEI in turn accused SBMA of being unwilling to deal with the company in good faith. The dispute between SBMA and SBMEI started after the latter began developing The Hill, a residential area mostly for expats, in 2010. Despite the drafting of numerous agreements, the SBMA suspended all rights of the owners of The Hill. News from the regions now. The Higaonon indigenous people across north and eastern Mindanao have renewed their condemnation and rejection of the communist movement. A video sent to the Philippine news agency showed a Higaonon leader reading a manifesto declaring the Communist Party of the Philippines, the New People's Army, and the National Democratic Front of the Philippines as enemies of their tribe. The Higaonon leaders represent the IP communities from Agusan del Sur, Agusan del Norte, Misamis Oriental, and Bukidnon provinces. In the video, the unnamed tribal leader said their declaration against the communist movement goes as far back as 2008. He said they are renewing it in line with the issuance of President Rodrigo Duterte's Executive Order 70, which uses the whole-of-nation approach in ending insurgency. The IP leader also vowed to help the government fight the communist insurgency in their communities. A mayor previously named in President Duterte's narco list was arrested in Cebu City after he allegedly attacked a masseur and ordered a masseuse to perform lewd acts on him. More on this and other news from the provinces from Ruth Abby Gita Carlos.
A mayor who was arrested for allegedly mauling a masseur was killed in an ambush on Friday afternoon. Clarin, Misamis Occidental Mayor David Navarro was shot dead in an ambush on his way to the inquest proceedings at the Cebu City Prosecutor's Office. The chief of Clarin Police and 4 others were also hit. Navarro, who was on the narco list of President Duterte, was arrested for attacking a massage parlor attendant on Wednesday night. Meanwhile, police officers have decried the alleged harassment by a lawmaker of the party list Alliance of Concerned Teachers. The Valencia City Police on Thursday said that ACT Representative Franz Castro harassed the security detail of public school teacher Zadie Cabanales at a hospital in Valencia City. Cabanales, who was shot on October 15 with her husband, had requested for privacy following her shooting. The ACT party list earlier claimed that Ramil and Zadie Cabanales were their members. In other news, the Police Regional Office in the Caraga region will deploy an additional 1,500 personnel to secure the upcoming observance of All Souls Day and All Saints Day or Undas. Aside from securing cemeteries and other public areas, the augmentation force will also conduct patrols and man police assistance desks in different areas in the region. There will also be personnel from the Explosive and Ordnance Division together with K9 teams in strategic areas. Meantime, intensified police operations will be conducted before, during, and after the observance of Undas. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Ruth Abigita Carlos.
More stories from the newsroom. Malacañang says the country's improved World Bank ranking shows proof of the Duterte administration's good governance. And the image of Our Lady of Lourdes in Quezon City is set to be canonically crowned by order of the Pope next year. Back after a quick break, stay with the PNA Newsroom. The country's improved ranking in the World Bank's 2020 Ease of Doing Business report shows that the Duterte administration's drive for good governance is paying off. Malacañang welcomed the World Bank's report, which showed that the Philippines jumped 29 spots to rank 95th out of 190 economies. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo said, true to his campaign promise, President Rodrigo Duterte vowed to cut red tape and corruption in the bureaucracy. He cited the President's signing of the Ease of Doing Business Act, which requires government agencies to act on applications within as low as 3 days for transactions. Panelo encouraged the public to help the government by reporting acts of red tape or corruption within the government. PCOO Secretary Martin Andanar, meanwhile, said the improved rankings showed a strong vote of confidence towards the Duterte administration. He thanked government line agencies, state-owned corporations, and other branches of government for carrying out the President's directive. 3 lechon festivals were held in Santa Rosa and at the provincial capital in Palayan City to underscore the safety of meat products in Nueva Ecija. Mayor Josefino Angeles and other local officials joined the public as they dined on 3 roasted pigs and other meat dishes during the Budel fights organized by the Market Vendors Association on Tuesday. Angeles assured that there is no African swine fever in Santa Rosa. Lina Silva, president of the Market Vendors Association, said pork sold in their stalls come only from local raisers and has undergone proper checking by authorities. Silva, however, admitted that pork demand has drastically decreased due to the ASF scare. At the provincial capital, Governor Aurelio Umali led the public in eating 36 heads of lechon. Umali assured that they are making sure that the ASF will not enter the province. A look at our global headlines. About 2,000 people in Northern California have been ordered to evacuate Thursday after a massive wildfire exploded in size overnight. In a report by the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, the fire that ignited Wednesday night scorched over 40.5 square kilometers by Thursday noon local time with zero containment. Dozens of buildings are said to have burned down, but so far there is no report of casualties. The fire was reported to have started near the Geysers geothermal plant, the world's largest geothermal field. Firefighters also said they do not know if the Pacific Gas and Electric Company power shutoff was in effect in the area at the time the blaze started. PG&E announced Wednesday that it would cut off electricity to almost 180,000 customers from noon of that day through Thursday as a precaution to possible breakout of wildfires. The canonical coronation of the image of Our Lady of Lourdes enshrined in Quezon City will be held next year. In a Facebook post of the National Shrine of Our Lady of Lourdes, the religious event is set on May 2, 2020. Last September, Pope Francis granted the canonical coronation of the image. The approval was released months after Cubao Bishop Honesto Onchoco requested for a canonical coronation of the 126-year-old image enthroned at the altar of the National Shrine. A canonical coronation is where the Pope designates a crown or stellar halo to be added to a Marian image under a specific devotional title in a particular diocese. Likewise, it is the highest distinction the Church grants to an image. And before we go, here is now the latest in our community billboard. The Cavite Provincial Police Office urged Caviteños and the public to join its first ever fun run themed Caviteño Laban sa Droga at Terorismo on Saturday. The activity is a project to forge a closer relationship between the police and the community. Participants are advised to gather at the District Mall Anabu at the corner of Daanghari Road, Imus City, starting 4 a.m. Registration fees are 300 pesos, 500 pesos, and 750 pesos for 5K, 7K, and 10K run respectively. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. Malacañang directs all government agencies to take further steps to stop the spread of African swine fever. The palace hails President Duterte's meeting with Chinese Vice Premier Hu Chunhua as signifying the country's growing friendship with China. Leaders of the Higaonon tribe pledge anew to condemn the CPP-NPA NDF and the communist movement. And the image of Our Lady of Lourdes in Quezon City is set to be canonically crowned by order of the Pope next year. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, Check our webpage or head on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. I'm Bench Bondoc. Have a great weekend.